Welcome back to the Right Take Report. In the ongoing debate over reparations, a new argument is starting to emerge. Could outlawing inheritance be a substitute for reparations? Sounds wild, right? But let's break it down and see where it leads us.
I'm up here for one purpose. My buddy is a friend of yours. He lives up in White Pine, and he wants me to have this discussion with you because me and him had this discussion this weekend. What are your thoughts about reparations for Black people specifically, and like Black Americans specifically? What is your
Very much against.
Very much against. Can I ask why?
Well, first and foremost, I don't believe that we should ever pay monetary damages to people where nothing bad happened to them, just because they are related to a group of people where something bad happened to them.
Okay, so
Because it separates the idea. Let me just finish, and then I'll throw it back to you.
Absolutely.
Our justice system, when properly understood, is about individuals receiving justice, not tribes or groups receiving justice.
Also, I want to state that just because I am a Black man, I do not speak for all Black people. So I'm just this.
I like this guy. You should give it up for him.
Just want to state that for the record. I'm speaking for myself. All right. So definitely hear you on that. And even for me, when it comes to reparations, for me personally, I don't believe that it should be a check. I think that reparations can look like many different things, whether it's like investment in institutions, more like, better schools, hospitals, all that kind of stuff. So my question to you is like, so since you are against reparations, would you say that we should be would you be for outlawing inherited wealth? Does that make sense?
Well, I'm not for outlawing that. And those are two different things.
Can I explain my point though? All right, so my point to that is that, so what I hear for the argument against reparations is that, Black people today, obviously we weren't there, forced slavery, segregation, all of that kind of stuff. So we've done nothing to deserve that, because all the people who should have gotten it, actually not even probably, who should have gotten it, are, either long gone or whatever. Now, there's still some who are still with us today, but that's a conversation for another day. But my point is that, so inheritance and inherited wealth is something that, the great grandfather, whatever, is passed down. Homeboy who is here today did nothing to deserve that multi-billion-dollar business, but he gets it because of his bloodline, correct? Is that how it,
yeah,
that's how inheritance works, right?
Yeah, no, like Bronny James is going to get $1 billion.
Right, yeah, sorry. Great example. So what I'm saying is that, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, I believe that reparations in and of itself, one, I don't think that the argument is formed right, and two, I believe that, it's kind of a reverse inheritance, if that makes sense, where it's like, where it's like, yes, Black people, like me personally, yes, I did not have to suffer through Jim Crow, slavery, or whatever, but all those choices that were made in those times have, gotten necessarily me to where I'm at now.
Got it. So let me tell you where we have a difference of opinion.
Okay, absolutely.
So we as conservatives tend to underemphasize this idea of many legacies of suffering. Mm-hmm. Whereas people on the left, not saying you're on the left, but the other perspective.
Definitely not.
No, for sure. But that's fine. No, that's fine. Let's just say the other side of the argument tend to emphasize that you are stuck because of something that happened to you many generations prior. We believe, absent very unique circumstances in the United States of America, that is almost never true. For example, we think every individual should be judged by their own actions, their own character, and their agency. Now, let's play this out, though. You're acting as if, not you, but let's say the argument, because you're coming after this in a great way, there's been no money sent Black America the last 60 years. Mm-hmm. We have spent over $25 trillion on Black America in 60 years, and Black America's poorer than before we started. Mm-hmm. We're talking about Medicaid, food stamps, we're talking about schools, public housing. The issue is not the amount of money. Mm-hmm. The issue has instead been a couple things. Number one, it's been the downfall of the Black family. And unfortunately,
yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, the more money we've spent on this, we've seen the downfall of the Black family.
All right, about halfway through this Charlie Kirk clip, I'm going to give a couple of thoughts. For one, Charlie Kirk is spot on here. Just because slavery happened hundreds of years ago and there has been instances of ongoing discrimination does not mean that today's generation should be forced to pay for something they did not personally cause. The idea that people today are living under systematic oppression just doesn't hold up. I challenge you. Show me one law that's actively and systematically oppressing people today based on their race solely, or even unsolely, anything with race. It sounds good in theory, but once you unpack it, the idea falls apart. Let's compare the two concepts in terms of reparations and inherited wealth. Reparations are involuntary redistribution of money, often taken from those who have rightfully earned it and worked very hard over many years for it. And you're essentially punishing people who didn't do anything wrong besides make the money, which isn't even wrong. In contrast, inheritance is a voluntary transfer of wealth passed down by those who have worked very hard for it, and to be clear, it wouldn't be absurd to take someone's inheritance simply because of their race. Or it would be. That's not only unfair, it's deeply unjust.
Just some numbers super quick. Is that in 1964, right before the passage of the Civil Rights Act, 75% of black youth had a dad around. Now it's 25%. So only 25%. So 1 in 4 kids have a dad around. Black dads are no longer a big part of young kids' life. It's a very big problem that has huge ramifications. Then finally on the reparations argument, that comes into just more like concrete questions. Where do you draw the line? Who defines it? And also, why would you tax, for example, somebody like me? My ancestors fought on the Union side of the Civil War, so I got to go pay more money, even though my ancestors did the right thing. No offense if you guys fought for the Confederacy. That's not trying to, drum up any, it's all good. We're all Americans now. I'm not. Why should I have to then go pay for something that my ancestors did correctly? Finally, it's like, how do you prove it? Like, this is not your argument, but it's a hilarious contradiction. The very same people who tell you that voter ID is racist want all of a sudden black America to prove that they're the descendants of slaves 7 generations ago. Like, let me go get my paperwork together. I thought it's racist to ask people for their paperwork. Anyway, the whole thing's crazy. But here's the more important thing that I think we can agree on. Okay. That we should have a opportunity colorblind compact. We need to have school choice in this country so kids can go to better schools and have more mobility. Number 2, reconstitute the black family. And finally, this is one that you might agree on because you're not a liberal, is that we need to no longer import foreigners that are going to undercut the wages of workers of all races, especially black Americans.
I agree.
And so what we've done is we imported Nicaraguans and Guatemalans to come take low-wage labor, and we didn't want to pay our own Americans those jobs. So final thoughts on those points.
Also, great points. I would say that I am with you for the idea of a colorblind society. I think it's a bit of a farce to say that colorblind society is something we should aspire to, but I think it's a farce to think that it doesn't exist, that race doesn't play a factor. I totally
agree.
Okay, and so
I will say it plays far less of a factor 10 years ago. It's playing more of a factor today.
Yes, I agree.
In a negative way.
Yes, I 100%. I mean, I think you had mentioned something about DEI like earlier, and I was like, for sure, like the way I agree with DEI in principle, but I think the way it's been instituted by our government and all the other institutions is completely wrong. So, because for me, it's not about seeing color; it's how you treat color. Does that make sense?
Everyone's going to see color. And
exactly.
You're right.
Yeah,
and so it's an ideal that is admirable, being colorblind.
Right.
The problem with what we were promised with the Civil Rights Act, we were promised a colorblind society. We now have a color-obsessed society.
All right, here are my final thoughts. Just to let you know, this may be a long time of me talking, but let's be real. Reparations, as they're being proposed, aren't the right solution, of course. If we apply the same logic of reparations universally, we'd have Jewish people demanding compensation for the Holocaust, or Native Americans for the genocides their ancestors endured, besides what they've already gotten. So no, simply paying people because of past wrongs is not the answer here. But there are other forms of reparations that make sense and are effective that have already been done within the United States in terms of redistributing some of the wealth back. For example, education grants and scholarships for underprivileged communities provide opportunities without taking them from others, and it gives it to people that have earned it. Affirmative action, though widely debated and no longer around, was designed to level the playing field, which it did to a certain extent. There are many tax incentives for minority entrepreneurs and investments in communities' infrastructure like schools, health, and police reform, even though we need much more police in certain communities. These are definitely the types of approaches that address systematic inequality without penalizing individuals who didn't create the problem in the first place. Now, here's another point that's often ignored: the breakdown of the two-parent family structure in some communities, specifically the black communities. It's uncomfortable, but it's a key factor in the struggles many face today. The absence of fathers in the home, coupled with government welfare policies that subsidize single motherhood in the black communities, has worsened these issues and kept families dependent on the state and voting for Democrats. But the statistics are just speaking for themselves here. The real issue here is not historical oppression. It's about building stronger, self-sufficient families. Conservatives like Trump have pushed for personal responsibility, and that's where the focus should be. We need solutions that create long-lasting change, not just political band-aids and throwing money at people. And let's not forget about DEI programs in terms of reparations, and this entire debate. These initiatives, instead of promoting true equality, lower standards and create division. Look, we can see how much division it created today. It pretty much, you could say, lost Kamala the election. These initiatives, instead of promoting true equality, lower standards and create division among people. They're about identity politics, but not actual progress. And the left uses DEI to try to maintain political power, even though it's not really working and it's counterproductive. It divides us. But in the end, what a great conversation that we just witnessed. Truly a class act from the guy. But this is a wrap for the video. Love to hear your final thoughts on this in the comment section. It would mean so much if you threw me a subscription and shared the video. I'll see you guys in the next one.